Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dawn Carson, and I've been on a bit of a medical journey for the past decade, actually since 2011, but surgically it's been going on since 2017. Neurosurgery since 2019. I've had a series of neurosurgeries, including an occipital cervical fusion, fusing my skull down to C5, also an ACDF between 4 and 5. Turns out I was allergic to that hardware, so all that hardware had to come out. I've had two surgeries on my spinal cord. I have had, what else have I had? I guess I'd be all 5 of them right there. But it looks like I am headed towards some more. Let me explain. My medical journey has gone in I guess seasons of surgeries and seasons of roller coastering in and out of debilitating situations. Even though I've gone through a lot and I've had little moments where I thought, okay, I'm conquering this. This is good. I've been on another decline for the past 11 and a half months, but I'm finally getting some answers. I'm finally getting some, star crossing over my path that I can hang some hope on. And that's going to take some more surgeries, which is going to take help. I have applied for disability. That's not been approved yet. I applied February of this year, and this is October 13th as I am making this video for you, and it's not approved yet. I expect it will be. My medical history and surgical history, health history is just too well documented, and there's too much currently going on. But it could happen. I don't want to say for certainty that it's going, I don't want to say with any certainty that it's going to be approved, but I think there's reasons to hope that and expect that it will be. So where I am now, though, is in need of funding myself just for, keeping food on the table, gas in the car, bills paid, that kind of thing, and pursuing medical care. I do have insurance, and my insurance is covering out-of-state medical pursuits, but it does not cover airfare, lodging, Ubering while you're there, food when you're away from home, those kinds of things. It certainly doesn't cover those things for a caregiver who has to travel with you. This newest decline started the beginning of November of last year. And November to June was pretty intense time. I lost 60% of my hair. It was so intense. So much pain, so little sleep, so much to try to sort out. And when things get that complex that you just can't put your finger on it, and you can't even figure out what to call a doctor and tell them because there's too much going on, you generally have to look at multiple things going on. It's not just a set of symptoms from one system in the body being affected. And that was the case here. So it took me a little while to even refine my search. But finally, by June, I'm beginning to get a little bit of relief. I lost a lot of weight, and that helped reduce inflammation. And then I started, really, I had the capacity then to really dig in and try to get to some doctors. And it's taken, this is October, so 4.5 months to get to the point where I am now, where I have some direction and some guidance from some doctors in various cities. That would be in Charleston, South Carolina, Cincinnati, Ohio, and Denver, Colorado. The key thing that we're investigating initially are, well, 2 things, is spinal fluid leaks, and either a leak along the spinal canal or inside the skull. So that would be a cranial spinal fluid leak. So I don't know yet. That search is in its initial phases. There's a lot of things that point to that. But there's always symptom overlap with other things that affect the vascular system and the the vestibular system, and all these different things that also look like a spinal fluid leak. But there's a pocket of fluid at the base of my sacrum that really points towards a leak. There's a lot of symptoms that point to that. So that's being investigated. I'm using Dr. Vera Janapa to get that started. Dr. Klinga in Rhode Island is helping me to get a full spine MRI, having that imaging done here locally because I've had them do it before and haven't had any problem with that. So I think I'm comfortable using a local imaging for that. Typically, local imaging does not do a great job of looking at my imaging and seeing the things that are wrong. Typically, it's because it's just not common things. And so they're just not, I can't speak for them. I can't speak for them. I don't know why they miss a lot of things. But a lot of it might simply be because it's rare things and it's not what they're used to seeing. So that's a spinal fluid leak. The other thing would be we're looking at maybe a combination of things that are affecting the vascular flow in and out of the brain that might be restricted by the stiomastoid process and also potentially the stiohyoid. It's funny to say these names because individually they're a tongue twister, but they put them together and they're a bigger tongue twister. So Eagle syndrome, and then a complex variant of Eagle syndrome because of the mastoid process being elongated. What I'm being told right now is that that process is not, process means it's like a bony structure. That process is elongated probably from birth, not because of some of the other things I've had. If I have a classical Eagle syndrome, which is a calcification of a ligament, then that would likely be explained because I had a tethered cord tethering the brain down while the head had craniocervical instability, so the head's wobbling around and you got a cord that's, pulling on the brain, and that causes tension around that area. And then when ligaments get overly strained, they like to calcify. Not a cool thing. I do have some other calcifications that still have to be investigated, but they're not currently debilitating me. Who knows? They could be life and death, and we just don't know about it. But the things that are going on right now that are pretty critical is the spinal fluid leak, supposed one, or two, and then the things that are going on in here that's causing vascular impingement, restriction of flow in and out of the brain. So those sound important too, right? I would say they need to get addressed. But how do you even begin to set the first appointment when you have zero funds in your bank account? When the only way you've made it through the past few weeks and months is because of just the generosity of friends, right? How do you do that? It's because a friend asked me that today. He goes, Dawn, how are you going to do this? How do you, plan to do this? And the thought had not even crossed my mind to guess about that not being an option. These things have to be taken care of. Otherwise, I can't be the grandmother, the friend, the sister, the daughter, the aunt, that I need to be, that I can't be the wholeness of who I am. So if that's necessary, God's going to provide a way. I just believe it, that I can't have this much hope now. Like I didn't have a lot of hope until I had gotten onto the radar of these doctors who specialize in these areas. And that really helped me to just kind of fine tune my energy and my hope. So that leads me to explain where the financials are. And the honest truth is it's hard to define. Like I said, my basic living expenses are a variable that I don't know how to cover. I keep those to a bare minimum. I really don't spend money on anything I don't have to, and I try to do that as cheaply as possible. Some might point to my carnivore diet and say, well, if you don't eat any ribeye, you're going to be eating cheaper. Well, I may have 1 to 4 ribeyes a month, and I'm getting those cheaply at Aldi. But even with a carnivore diet, I mean, I've been cooking for myself for 40 some years. I know how to stretch a budget, and I do that. I definitely do that. And my food budget now does not cost me what it used to cost me before I was on the carnivore diet. But what the carnivore diet does for me, and this is a tangent, I know, but what the carnivore diet does for me is keep me healthy. It keeps me off an operating table. It keeps me from having to take medicines for additional pain because it keeps the inflammation off my body. So with that said, that little caveat, because people have been pointing to that lately, so I wanted to bring it up, that I can stretch a budget any amount. I can make it go as thinly as possible, but I can't make it fall out of the sky. And that's why I need this outreach of GoFundMe. So I need just basic living expenses to hold me over until my disability claim is approved. And I need to be able to travel, which is airfare, lodging. In some cases, it might be someone else's vehicle and gas. And so what else would that be? So it's lodging, and sometimes that's a week or so in a hotel for yourself and somebody else. You got to pay for the caregiver. Who may be taking time off work. You want to compensate them, or at least or at least make sure that they don't have any additional expenses than loss of income while they're helping you. Food while you're away, all these things. And it's not just one trip. It's different trips. It's to Charleston. It's to Cincinnati, Ohio. Like, how do I make that happen when I am struggling to figure out how to keep food in the house? And clearly that's why I'm on GoFundMe. I need your help to bridge that gap, to get me from here to the other side of this little nightmare, to where I can function at my best, whatever that is at that time. I don't know what's ahead of me. I know there's going to be probably at least a blood patch or two. There is an angiogram and venogram getting scheduled tomorrow that will get scheduled, and that will be in November. But the doctor hinted that we would probably be doing a stent or two. And I mentioned to him that I'm allergic to hardware, to the hardware that was put in for my fusion. He said, he could find an alternative for me, but we didn't want to talk about that right then. That would be putting the cart before the horse. We need to do the investigation of the testing first. So there's just a lot to try to cover, and I can't do it on my own. But I am believing 100% that it's going to come through somehow, but it's not coming through by my might, my will. It's just coming by faith, from you guys. And I appreciate anybody who can, if you can't give physically, financially, if that's just, you're in my situation, share this, please. Share my story, because when you're doing that, you're not just sharing it about me. I'm just an N of one, right? But this particular story you're hearing is, but it's not, honestly. And it's, in all actuality, it's an N of 30,000, 50,000, I don't know how many, but tens of thousands of people across the world have a story similar to mine because of this same combination of things, from Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, connective tissue disorder, that leads to all these different dysfunctions happening, and then one spirals and causes the next and causes the next. And that's one of the reasons why I am so vocal, because I do know that every time I share my story, I'm helping others to validate their story, make them feel validation in sharing their own, and any caregiver that they want to help them to understand their situation. There's just strength in sharing our stories. So if you can't give financially, please consider sharing this various ways, just talking about it, putting it on your socials, telling a friend about it, things like that. And of course, the most important thing you can do, regardless of whether or not you feel like sharing, regardless of whether or not you have any financials that you can loan me my way, is prayer. If you can just lift this situation in prayer for discernment, compassion. I appreciate compassion. Haven't had a lot of that here locally. I've had the opposite of compassion from local doctors. And so, I know it's not a given, even when I go to the experts who are used to dealing in some of these complex things. So I would appreciate the compassion being a component of this. But if you would just pray for discernment, any actions that are taken be wise, be blessed, be fruitful, and have no negative consequences, and that I have a restoration of health where I don't continue to decline and continue to hit rock bottom again and again. This past year was hard. I've missed out on so much. My daughter had a grandbaby. She already had one. And if it wasn't for her interjecting them into my life, I really would have no life this past year. And I've been through that too much. I've turned 60 years old that's 3 months ago, not even 3 months ago. And I'd like to go through this next decade, not like what I went through to get from 50 to 60. With your help, that's possible. With your prayers, that's possible. With any of your help, I appreciate it so very much from the bottom of my heart. And as I say in my quilting world, I'm going to keep my needle moving, and I hope you do too. Thank you for being here.